From Walking Pneumonia Central, this is Kurt Berglund with another Pine Tar Baseball Great Teams update. The 83 White Sox are done and in the can, and I want to share some thoughts about what I've learned about them today. I'm going to do one of these for all the teams. I've also been persuaded by our good friend Roger that a little write-up for you. I'm going to make that available on Facebook for anybody that wants to download it. A little write-up for each team. May be helpful to help you enjoy the set, especially with those teams that you may not be as familiar with. So we'll see. I'll get that done too, but my top priority right now is the cards. Going to preview the 83 White Sox for you today, and get one or two of these types of videos done. That way that if you want to come back and look at these when you get the cards and you want to play some games and find out a little bit about the team, whether you want to use the strategies of that particular manager is up to you, but you'll have some information. Now, importantly here, and I'm going to drink this before I cough. Importantly here, please consider me the messenger. Don't shoot me. The information that I'm going to give you is based on the data and the reading that I've done about the team, and I've done that about all 16 teams in the set. I do editorialize a little bit here and there, but for the most part, this is just going to be based on my research. So the White Sox were the winners of the American League Western Division in 1983. They won so pretty easily. They clinched in mid-September. They had plenty of time to set their rotation and rest everybody for the playoffs. They went into Memorial Stadium for Game 1 against the Baltimore Orioles in the 83 ALCS, and Lamar Hoyt pitched a beautiful game, probably the ace of their staff, pitched a beautiful game and won 2-1, and got everyone thinking even more that the White Sox were going to be the team in the World Series for the American League in 1983. And then the Orioles took the next 3 games and won the best of 5 ALCS 3-1. Yeah. So that's how you go from high expectations and really high demands. When you look at a White Sox team that hadn't been in the postseason in 24 years before that and hadn't even really sniffed the postseason, except a couple of times before that. They came close in 64, sort of close in 67, had a nice season in 77, and sort of sniffed it a little bit in 81 when the strike happened, but had a poor second half of that strike-shortened season. A couple of things about the Whites. First of all, I'll give you the lineup of the White Sox. What I do with this great team set, and I'll say this again, but what I do with the great team set is you're getting 27 players. Now, these are not necessarily the 27 players that had the most at-bats or innings pitched. These are the 27 players who were available to the team at the end of the season and were possibly in the mix for the postseason roster. I'm trying to think of this from a Field of Dreams perspective. Who was with the team at the end? And so, those are the cards that you'll be getting. Who was with the team at the end, including if they made the playoffs, who was on the playoff roster? Or if they missed the playoffs, who probably would have been on the playoff roster, or at least was in the running to do so. You're not getting all of the players because this isn't a replay situation. This is a dream season kind of a situation, and when I redo a full season set, then we'll talk about that. But for now, you're getting the 27 players that are most likely to be in the mix at the end, including the playoff roster. For the 83 White Sox, these were the lineups used in the American League Championship Series against each type of pitching. So if you look on the left, it's versus left-handed pitchers. I hope you enjoy the Berglandia font. Rudy Law led off in center field. Carlton Fisk was batting second. Very controversial at the time, but maybe a key to their season. Tom Paciorek batted third and played first base. Greg Luzinski batted fourth and played DH. Ron Kittle batted fifth and played left field. Harold Baines batted sixth and played right field. Vance Law batted seventh and played third. The shortstop of your choice, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, batted eighth and played short. And Julio Cruz batted ninth and played second base. The right-handed hitting lineup is very similar with three switches, actually, I guess. Rudy Law led off in center field. Carlton Fisk batted second and caught. Harold Baines batted third against a right-hander and played right field. Luzinski stayed the DH. Paciorek batted fifth and played first. Kittle moved down to sixth and played left field. Then comes Law at third, the shortstop, and Julio Cruz. Tony La Russa was pioneering the two leadoff hitter concept, and so Cruz, when he was acquired from Seattle for Tony Bernazard, mostly to solidify the defense, but also to increase team speed, he was installed as the ninth place hitter, and they didn't have to worry about letting him know that he just didn't get on base quite enough. Anyway, couple of things that you'll notice when you get the cards. One is that Greg Luzinski has a first base rating on his card, even though he spent nearly the entire season as the designated hitter. Why does he have a first base rating? It's not a good first base rating. It's not a first base rating you'd like to use. But he has one, and that's because in 1983, there was no DH in the World Series, and so La Russa was anticipating that Luzinski would be moved to first base and play there should the White Sox make the World Series. They didn't, but he had some games there in September, so he does have a first base rating on his card. That's why it's there. Second, Mike Squires. This is more in the novelty section. Mike Squires, maybe the best fielding first baseman of his time, maybe the best fielding first baseman I've ever seen. I think he might be. I used to say that all the time, and I think I still believe it. Has a third base rating. Now, Mike Squires was a left-handed thrower, but La Russa played him one time at third base because Squires asked him to. He was fine at third and played third, and the world went spinning. But I wanted to give him a third base rating. It's not a mistake. He is a left-handed thrower, and he did play third base. In fact, in 1980, Squires was a left-handed catcher and has a rating in his cards for those seasons and stuff like APA as well. Shortstop is a subject we should talk about. La Russa placed his shortstops hitting eighth in the lineup. Fletcher played short a good chunk of the year. Dybzinski was the other shortstop. This was a sore spot for the White Sox. Later in the year, he started with Fletcher, he went to Dybzinski, went back to Fletcher. He never really made a decision that he stuck with. Neither player played all that well, although you could make a case that Fletcher was actually the better player, and what was he messing around with Dybzinski for? I don't know. It's part of it was that veteran thing, the veteran appeal, that made Dybzinski more attractive maybe than Fletcher. I'm not sure. But You'll notice both of them had plenty of at-bats when you get the cards, and you'll notice that neither of them is an all-star. The lineup, we talked about that before with Fisk batting second. Much discussion in Chicago in 1983 about what to do with the second spot in the order and where exactly to place Carlton Fisk. The three people at the bottom, Bernazard when he was a second baseman for the team in the early part of the year, and certainly Cruz and Vance Law were all considered for the second spot in the order, and the public and plenty of sports writers thought that it was a mistake to put Fisk in the second spot in the order. However, La Russa did it and had success with it. The White Sox scored 800 runs, which for the team at the time, that was a lot. And so, when you get down to the bottom of the order in this part of the order, what La Russa would do in the late innings, if the left-hander was in, fine. He left Vance Law in to bat. But if a right-hander was pitching, Law would be hit for, and the shortstop would be hit for. The people he would use would be Jerry Hairston to get on base and Greg Walker to drive him in. So that was his combination. Hairston first for Law, and then Walker for the shortstop. Or if the shortstop led off the inning, you get Hairston in there and wait to use Walker until later. Very rarely did he pinch hit for Cruz. He didn't like to take Cruz out of the game, partly because of the defense, and Cruz's reputation on defense was excellent, even though he had kind of peaked in that area a little bit. In fact, his whole game had kind of peaked by 1983. But he stole a lot of bases. He could definitely turn the double play, and his range was still okay. Last thing before I leave you today, well, a couple things. One, the White Sox struggled with their bullpen. They had 4 solid starting pitchers, and they had Jerry Koosman as the 5th starter. And Jerry Koosman didn't have a great year in 83, although he did have 24, 25 starts. But La Russa had trouble with his bullpen, and Salome Barojas started the year as the closer, and that didn't work out. He had Kevin Hickey as a left-handed setup man, short reliever, they used to call him in the day, and Juan Augusto as a left-handed short reliever. Dick Tidrow was the middle to long man, and Barojas started the season as the closer. But Dennis Lamp, who started 5 games for the team and relieved in 40-some others, became the closer and was the closer really in the playoffs to the extent that La Russa defined the role. When you are managing the 1983 White Sox, you will struggle with that decision as well. Barojas or Lamp, and when to get the left-handers in there. Tidrow, in certain circumstances, was fine. He pitched in a mop-up situation in Game 3 in the playoffs, but he didn't really play a very important role. So expect that these White Sox will have a nice starting rotation for you, but when you get to the end of the game, you'll be maybe doing some mixing and matching to try and get the matchups that you want. So that's another piece to the team that you need to be aware of. There are some really, really slow base runners on the team. Ron Kittle, Greg Luzinski could really clog up the base paths. There are some pinch runners available to you. You'll have a tricky time deciding when to use them, when to pull Kittle. Kittle was pretty horrible in left field on defense, although he did hit 35 home runs. They tried Pachorik out there some for defense. That wasn't a good choice. And you'll have a backup outfielder for defense named Dave Stegman that you can get out there if you want to get Kittle out of the game for defense as well. Mike Squires came in late in the game to play first base on defense. in place of really anybody. Greg Walker started the season as the first base phenom and hitter of the future and wasn't able to hold the job, but did become a valuable pinch hitter later on. That is your 1983 White Sox rundown, and I'm going to be sending the White Sox. The White Sox are in the can. The White Sox are done. I'm starting the 86 Mets today, and I'll do one of these for the 86 Mets tomorrow. Again, really sick. Endurance is terrible. I'm behind, but I'm making progress. We're about halfway through getting the team set up, and they will be available soon, but I'll keep you posted on all that as well. Thank you for the kind thoughts and your patience, and looking forward to getting the set into your hands as soon as possible. Hope you have a great day. So long, everybody.